You probably think you have a solid understanding of the private military world. When you hear the term PMC, your mind likely goes straight to the heavily armored convoys rolling through dusty Middle Eastern streets, ex-Special Forces operators running close protection details for nervous diplomats, or tactical instructors training local militias in the scorching heat of a remote desert. That is the public face of the industry. That is the storefront window, designed to look like a necessary, albeit gritty, extension of global security. But that is not your world. You do not operate in the sunlight. You exist in the windowless basement of the global military-industrial complex. You are not a bodyguard, you are not a soldier of fortune, and you certainly are not a patriot. You belong to an asset denial unit. In the sterile, soundproof boardrooms of multinational megacorporations, you are colloquially known as the cleaners. Your employers do not buy security. They buy plausible deniability by the hour. You operate in a terrifying shadow economy where quarterly profit margins matter infinitely more than human morality, where international law is viewed merely as a list of costly suggestions, and where your entire job description is summarized in two chilling, absolute words: no witnesses. To understand your life, you have to completely discard the traditional arithmetic of warfare. Conventional military operations are defined by flags, shifting front lines, territorial gains, and political ideologies. Your operational reality is infinitely colder and much more transactional. Your commanding officer is not a general. It is a faceless board of directors sitting in a glass skyscraper halfway across the globe. Your battlefield is never a marked combat zone. It is a highly contested lithium mine in South America, a covert pharmaceutical research laboratory in Eastern Europe, or perhaps an isolated indigenous settlement sitting directly on top of an unexploited, multi-billion-dollar rare earth mineral deposit in Central Africa. You are the ultimate insurance policy for disaster capitalism. When a multinational corporation invests $10 billion into a project and something goes catastrophically wrong, they do not call the authorities. If a brave whistleblower discovers illegal, lethal chemical testing on local populations, or if a rival corporate entity is about to secure exclusive extraction rights through bribery, the company's stock price threatens to plummet. That impending financial crash is the silent alarm that activates your unit. The global market dictates who lives and who gets erased. You do not receive a rousing, patriotic briefing from a commander before a deployment. There is no flag to salute, no national anthem to stand for, and no moral high ground to claim. Your activation begins with an encrypted data packet sent to a burner device that will incinerate its own hard drive 20 seconds after you read the contents. The packet contains topographical coordinates, digital blueprints of a facility, facial recognition profiles, and a single, uncompromising operational objective: neutralize all visibility. The logistics of your deployment are a masterclass in not existing. You do not fly on military transports or commercial airlines. You travel on unregistered ghost flights utilizing tail numbers that change mid-air and landing on abandoned airstrips under the cover of absolute darkness. You leave your passport, your name, and your past completely behind. You are issued heavily modified, untraceable weaponry manufactured in countries that officially do not export arms. Your tactical gear carries no insignia, no blood-type patches, and no manufacturing tags. You speak in a coded operational language designed to confuse intercepted radio traffic. You are a ghost, paid an exorbitant sum to ensure others become ghosts. Your first deployment into a hot zone is a terrifying exercise in methodical, industrial obliteration. The mission objective is simple, brutal, and utterly final. An asset must be denied. However, in corporate terminology, the asset is rarely just a physical building, a compromised server farm, or a stolen prototype. More often than not, the asset is a living, breathing human being. Or rather, a group of human beings. Perhaps it is a small, stubborn collective of local elders who categorically refuse to sign over their ancestral lands to an agrochemical giant. Perhaps it is a dedicated team of independent environmental scientists who have just compiled undeniable proof that your employer's new industrial extraction method is actively poisoning a regional water supply, causing widespread fatal illness. The corporate board cannot afford the public relations nightmare of a lawsuit, and they certainly cannot allow these individuals to testify in front of an international tribunal. So they hire the Asset Denial Unit. You are the ultimate eraser. When diplomacy and bribery completely fail, you are the definitive answer to a corporate liability. When your squad breaches the perimeter of the target location, it does not resemble a traditional firefight. Battles imply a mutual exchange of hostility, a chaotic friction between two opposing forces. What your unit executes is an efficient industrial process of elimination. You move through the shadows with terrifying synchronized precision. You employ suppressed weapons, subsonic ammunition, and specialized close-quarters combat techniques designed to silence a target before they can even register the threat. You clear the target structure room by room, hallway by hallway, ensuring total, suffocating silence. The corporate contract demands only verifiable results. If a single witness escapes into the night, if a single distress call is successfully transmitted, you have failed the contract. In your line of work, failure is immediately penalized by your own subsequent elimination. You do not take prisoners, you do not ask questions, and you do not hesitate. You are an extension of the corporate will, an instrument of absolute finality deployed to ensure that the stock price remains stable and the quarterly dividends are paid out. Blood is simply the lubricant that keeps the corporate machinery running smoothly. The most disturbing aspect of the job is not the kinetic action itself. The true psychological horror of the Asset Denial Unit begins immediately after the last target has been neutralized. Killing a perceived threat is one thing. Making that threat cease to have ever existed in the historical record is an entirely different, deeply exhausting psychological burden. After the tactical phase concludes, the real grueling work of the cleaners begins. You do not simply exfiltrate the area and head to a local safe house to decompress. The mission is never truly over until the scene is completely, meticulously sanitized. Your unit deploys specialized forensic countermeasures. You spend agonizing hours crawling across the floor with ultraviolet lights, collecting every single brass shell casing, every fragmented piece of copper jacketing. You deploy industrial-grade biological degrading agents and highly localized thermite charges to ensure there is absolutely no trace of foreign DNA, hair follicles, or footprint impressions left behind. You physically dismantle and magnetically wipe all electronic devices, melting hard drives into unrecognizable pools of slag. The ultimate goal is not just assassination. It is the comprehensive erasure of an event from the timeline of human history. If the contract required the total denial of a physical structure, your unit possesses the expertise to seamlessly stage the aftermath. You might rig the facility with specific chemical signatures to make the destruction look exactly like a tragic, accidental industrial gas leak. You might plant perfectly fabricated evidence to frame a local, radical insurgency group for a terrorist attack. You do not just eliminate the physical asset. You entirely erase the event from reality and replace it with a highly controlled, fictional narrative. You are a highly specialized architect of global deceit. You leave absolutely no operational clues. Your handlers in the corporate office make sure that the local regional police commanders are heavily bribed to look the other way. The regional media headlines are tightly controlled or distracted by fabricated scandals. The only true memory of what actually transpired in that remote location exists solely inside your own mind. It is a toxic, corrosive memory that you are paid a massive, 7-figure salary to never, ever speak of, not even in your sleep. You are a lethal janitor for the global corporate elite, silently mopping up the blood spilled by their insatiable greed. Surviving this specific career path demands a very specific, deeply unsettling kind of cold, utilitarian detachment. If you possess even a flickering ember of traditional human conscience, the brutal arithmetic of asset denial will shatter your mind within the first 6 months. You must train yourself to view human targets purely as logistical obstacles on a spreadsheet. That brilliant investigative journalist who looked terrified as you breached her apartment door. She was not a truth seeker. She was a critical liability to the stock valuation. The indigenous villagers who simply wanted clean drinking water for their children, they were classified as unacceptable friction on a projected profit curve. In this highly specialized unit, basic human empathy is not just a weakness. It is a fatal operational error that will get you and your entire team killed. Your morality is not a personal choice. It is a strictly enforced corporate policy. The quarterly earnings reports dictate that there are to be only successfully closed contracts, never recognized victims. The highest paid operators are the ones who can actually live with themselves after trading their humanity for a massive offshore bank account. As the years grind on, you begin to notice that the chaotic world you operate in is not actually chaotic at all. It is terrifyingly organized and aggressively managed. The massive multinational corporations that lease your specialized services are significantly more powerful than the vast majority of sovereign nations on Earth. They are the true, undisputed masters of the modern world order. They do not bother declaring war. They simply declare a risk assessment, and you are the invisible, lethal hand that manages that risk on their behalf. You deploy to silence a prominent political dissident before they can mobilize a labor strike that would paralyze a crucial manufacturing sector. You sanitize a covert testing laboratory where an experimental agricultural virus accidentally got loose, ensuring the resulting local sickness is officially classified by bribed health officials as a naturally occurring outbreak. You are the deep, necessary shadow that modern hypercapitalism absolutely requires to survive and expand. Plausible deniability is the core product you manufacture, and it has become the most valuable commodity on the planet. The shareholders do not know your name, and they are incredibly happy to keep it exactly that way. But the final terror of your existence is not the fear of an international tribunal. The true terror is the creeping realization of who you have become to your employers. When your usefulness reaches its expiration date, you do not retire. You suddenly represent the one thing you were trained to eliminate, a witness. You are a walking vault of corporate war crimes. You are the last remaining asset from dozens of black operations that has not yet been aggressively denied. This is the moment the blood in your veins turns to ice. You know exactly what happens to corporate assets when they are reclassified as liabilities. You begin to watch your trusted teammates with intense paranoia, constantly wondering who has just been offered a massive bonus to sanitize you. You realize your employer values plausible deniability above loyalty. When you are no longer a revenue-generating asset, you are operational friction. The logic of the cleaners means you are only valuable as long as you are actively useful. Your value violently decreases with every dark secret you accumulate. This is not a career. It is a highly paid death sentence waiting for the CEO's signature. We have explored the darkest depths of the corporate shadow economy, the lengths to which power will go to maintain its pristine image. You have seen the invisible violence that keeps the modern world turning. But what happens when the pressure becomes too much? What happens when a cleaner decides they are tired of the silence, or when an executive realizes the body count is too high? In our next briefing, we will explore the survival manual of the corporate whistleblower. We will show you exactly what happens when the hunted expose the hunters, and the lethal price of bringing corporate shadows into the blinding light. You cannot afford to miss this deep dive into the deadliest game of hide and seek on the planet.